That's fine. Go ahead.
Hi, I'm Rebecca Friedrichs. I'm a longtime California public elementary school teacher, no longer in the classroom, but I have spent years fighting for what's right for the students, for the families, for good teachers, and for America. So I'm going to give you a little training on what happened to America's schools and what kind of power you have in America's schools and how to gain back more power. So let's get started. First of all, a little history on America's schools. You know, when our founders started our American school system, it wasn't funded by federal tax dollars at all. And they never wanted the federal government to be involved in our schools. They weren't called public schools at that time. We had a lot of private dame schools, common schools, and people paid for their own child's education. And yes, there were a few people who couldn't afford it, and there was plenty of charity to go around, and things were going very well in America. And our classrooms had the Ten Commandments on the wall, and we started with prayer and we read scriptures. And we did this not to teach religion, but because America is built upon Judeo-Christian virtue. And so we were teaching virtue, like you shouldn't envy, or honor your mother and father, don't lie, those sorts of things were being taught in America's schools. Why were we doing that? Because our founders knew that the only way to keep a free republic is with a well-educated and moral citizenry that can self-govern. Once we lose our amazing educational foundation, and once we lose our moral foundation, we can no longer self-govern. Wow, so look to today. We're having a really hard time with self-government in America. What happened? So in 1857, the National Teacher Association was started. They later became the National Education Association. They started with the stated goal of they wanted to make America a socialist nation. They didn't approve of a constitutional free republic. They thought they could do better with a Prussian system of schools, which is really more of a top-down method, making the children all, fall into a certain system, and children that are able to be controlled, basically. They removed and it took them a long time to remove it. They had to do it slowly, because had they come in and tried to change everything immediately, people would have said, no, no way, and they would have fought back. So very slowly, they changed our educational system. They removed the morals. They removed the virtue. In the 60s, they were able to remove prayer and Bible reading. And in 1962, something very big happened for the unions. They were able to get JFK on January 17th, 1962, to sign an executive order which recognized the right of federal employees to collectively bargain. A lot of people think collective bargaining is a good thing, but actually, collective bargaining is what changed our schools dramatically, because it removed the parent voice from our educational system. I'll talk a little bit more about that later, but I wanted you to understand that in the 1960s, there was a seismic shift in the American educational system. We went from using things like the McGuffey readers, which are full of stories of patriotism, heroism, godliness, and other things like Noah Webster's Blueback Speller, things that literally had scripture in them and taught our kids virtue. Those things were removed and replaced truly with a lot of educational quackery. And they even removed phonics, which is key for teaching children how to read when they're learning an alphabetic language. English is an alphabetic language. 3,500 years of history tells us that phonics is the way to learn an alphabetic language, and these unions and their special interest group friends removed it. Brought in look-say method, and just like I said, a seismic shift. So suddenly, our schools were not educating well, our values were removed, and because of the collective bargaining, unions were given all this power to run our schools, and parents' voices were removed. One other thing, the PTA was also undermined. In the 1960s, they were bullied by the unions into a stance of neutrality. So even the PTA is not really a voice for parents anymore, and hasn't been since the 60s. So what ended up happening was, instead of parents and good teachers who are there for all the right reasons running our educational system, our system was run by unions and the special interest groups that they've brought into our schools. So how did our government schools end up with all the nightmares we're dealing with today, like the radical sexualized agenda, critical race theory, teaching kids a social justice agenda, fake science, all kinds of horrible things going on in our schools that are not educational at all, but are actually a very harmful political agenda. I would argue a communist agenda. This is how it got into our schools, because parents were no longer the gatekeepers for who got into our schools. Unions became the gatekeepers. These unions, just so I can address this quickly, a lot of people don't want to say anything bad about them because they're afraid of offending teachers. Please don't feel that way. Great teachers can't stand these so-called unions because they know that they are not unions at all, and they do not represent good teachers. They're actually using teachers as pawns to fund a very radical agenda, to undermine our American free republic, to undermine our families, to undermine good education and morals. So please, please help us to expose them for who they are. I don't call them teacher unions because the minute you put the word teacher on there, people think teachers are doing these bad things. It's not teachers, it's union activists doing the bad things. So I call them the education mafia. I would encourage you to join me in that labeling, because that's what they really are. So when you go to a school board meeting and you face antagonistic school board members who, I've heard school board members use the F word toward parents. I've seen shocking displays of rude, totally immoral and dismissive behavior toward parents who are the taxpayers, who are the ones that love the children and care about the children. And these school board members are, rude to them, ignoring them. You've seen it. Maybe you've experienced it. How did that happen? Well, these very same unions, or education mafia, pour millions and millions of dollars into local school board races. So they are able to control a lot of the people who are sitting on the school boards. Usually they'll go into the PTA, they'll find the nastiest parent that's involved in that PTA, one that they know they can control, and they'll build up the ego of that person and say, aren't you great? We want, you're so smart, you're so great, you could be on the school board. Let's get you on the school board. And they'll run that nasty person. And often it's a person who's not very well educated, especially about history or about our schools. And they're able to manipulate these people. And the unions are very adept at using propaganda to manipulate people, using fear to manipulate them, indoctrinating them. And so then these people get on the school board and they actually become antagonistic to the parents they're actually there to serve. So that's how we've gotten all these nasty school board members. How did we become government schools? Same reason. The unions came in. They actually lobbied for years to change our entire school system and to create public schools and to bring federal funding in to fund those public schools. Like I said before, our founders never wanted federal funding in our schools. Why? Because they knew the nightmare we are living today would happen if the federal government was impacting our schools so heavily. So this is how we ended up with government-run public schools. It's unconstitutional. It's something we need to fight. We need to get back to, it's supposed to be the state that is overseeing the schools. It's supposed to be the local neighborhood level that is running the schools. And the state's not supposed to tell you what curricula to use and all that. Guidance is fine, but they're way out of their lane. And we can feel the negative effects of that. So that's just a little history on what happened. So now, parents, you may feel like you've really lost your power, or that parents have lost their power. Well, in some ways that's very true, and in some ways that's not. So let's start with the bad news first, and we'll end on a good note with this. So how did parents lose their power? I mentioned earlier collective bargaining. So it used to be that a school district would want to discuss, how are we going to change curricular? How are we going to pay teachers, or whatever the topic? And they would do something called meet and confer. They would have parent representatives, teacher representatives, school district representatives, and they would all talk civilly and discuss and come up with fair wages and curricula and all of that together. The federal government wasn't telling them what to do. You didn't have unions bringing in their favored radical sex ed programs that they've lobbied for and funded. You didn't have Planned Parenthood telling you what to teach. It was parents and the local community. When collective bargaining came in, parents were booted out. So how did you lose your place, parents? Collective bargaining. So you might talk to some teachers and they think collective bargaining is amazing because the unions have told them that's how they ended up getting a break, having recess break, or, so they could go to the bathroom, getting a raise or their pension or whatever. So teachers have been taught, oh, collective bargaining is the greatest thing in the world. It's not. It's damaging to teachers as well. It's the reason that the unions have gotten so much power. And most teachers don't realize that all these problems in our schools, teachers don't want the radical sex ed. Teachers don't want to be forced to call children a pronoun, pretend a girl's a boy or all that kind of stuff against the parents' will, behind the parents' back. Good teachers don't want to do that. Many are being forced into it, and they don't realize it's their union that's behind that. And collective bargaining caused all of that. So one of the things we need to do is challenge collective bargaining, and we need to challenge unions. In my dream world, we make unions illegal again, because in America, government unions were not permitted for all our country's history. And then all of a sudden, unions were given the right to organize in the government sector and then given collective bargaining rights. And we've all gone down a disastrous pit ever since. They have become a Goliath, monstrous, evil power that controls our schools and most of our government agencies and other institutions. So in my dream world, we make those government unions illegal again. And for now, you can at least know that it's those government unions that are, if you're in a school district that has all these problems and you have a school board being rude to you, you've got a problem with the union and you have a problem with collective bargaining. So now you at least know that. You can't fight your enemy until you understand your enemy. Your enemy is not teachers. Your enemy is the government union that claims to represent teachers, the education mafia. That's your enemy. So we get that straight. There's a lot of great teachers out there who are too afraid to speak out. A lot of them don't understand where all this evil's coming from. They can become your allies in a big way and help you to understand some of the lies that are going on if you put your arms around them and work with them. So those great teachers are your greatest allies. So what kind of power do you have? You have every power out there. Look, when I was still in the classroom, I was always told as a teacher, oh, you don't have any rights. You can't do that, but parents can. And so the school districts would try to keep secrets from the parents. I hate to say that, but it's true. A lot of these school districts are so corrupt or so manipulated that they have to look good and all these other things that they really keep a lot of information from parents. You have the right to everything that's going on in that school district. You have the right to see every word in the curricula. You have the right to be at every school board meeting. Of course, they do have closed session. You don't have the right to be in that because they might be discussing somebody's hiring or firing or something like that. I think that's a shame, but that's the law. But you have the right to be involved at every level. You have the right to work in the classroom. You have the right to be on that school campus every day. And I will tell you, a lot of school districts are trying to shut parents out on purpose. And we need to fight to stop that. Parents belong in the schools. If your school district is that hostile towards you, don't put your child in that environment. Why would you want to put your child in an environment where they're blocking you out? What are they hiding, right? So use your power, reclaim your power, do all you can. Don't let anybody tell you that as a parent, you can't see the curriculum. Don't let them say to you, oh, here's a link, you can go look at it. Here's your parent code. Go look at the link and you can see the curricula this way. Don't trust that. In every case where I have gone and looked at the link they give to parents, it's always redacted information and they always take out the most offensive stuff, which is like 90% of the curricula. You need to ask to see the actual curricula, the actual teacher's manual, and sit and read it for yourself. I suggest you put committees together and you read every single piece of curricula for every grade level and every subject area. There is a lot of evil snuck in, even in some math curricula. So you have the power to do that. You have the power to serve on committees. You have the power to ask questions. You have the power to push back and do it. Do it with grace and humility, but do it, and do it with large numbers. We've been in this fight for, 35 years. And I can tell you for 33 of those years, most parents weren't speaking out. And most parents were too afraid to speak out. You are living in a very special time. In the last 2 years, a lot of people have awakened. A lot of parents and teachers too have awakened, and they're speaking out because they see we were trying to expose what was going on and they didn't believe us before, but now they've seen it with their own eyes. And so you're living in a special time. Take advantage of it, stand together, stand with others in your community, and don't be afraid. Don't let those bullies on those school boards who are supported by the evil teacher unions and the PTA, don't let them bully you. Stand together. And my last advice in that little category is bring the dads with you. We need dads. We can't just have moms at the school board meetings. We need dads. If you need to get a little babysitter, or maybe a bunch of families work together and one mom and dad stay home and watch all the kids and entertain them while the other moms and dads go. We need the power of dads and their deep booming voices and their big bodies, because we are being intimidated by these, I'll call them wicked people. So we need to stand together against them. So the last thing I'm going to offer to you today is a little bit of advice for when you're going to school board meetings. My husband and I started an organization called For Kids and Country. We're just a nonprofit, and it is our goal to be a one-stop shop for parents and teachers, so that you can be informed and empowered. Everything on our site is absolutely free, unless you want to buy my book. That costs, because it costs us. So, but everything else we've put on that site, and we've labored ourselves and other expert teachers and parents, and we have given our time and our talents, and we have created a lot of resources for you. And today I want to share with you a very specific resource. So I'm going to share my screen. It says a host has disabled my screen share, so we'll have to take care of that. We'll edit this part out. Try again.
Try it now.
Yep, there it is. Now, why don't I see the page I had up though? Maybe this is it. Okay, so I've shared my screen with you, and this is just the home page of our website, forkidsandcountry.org, forkidsandcountry.org. When you get to our website, there's all kinds of information for you. I'm going to take you back to the home page. And you can click on this first little slide that says join the movement, or you can come up here and click join the movement. And when you get to this landing page, you see a whole bunch of little buttons. And I'm going to this page because all of these buttons are key to you. So spend some time on them. Learn how to adopt a teacher. That's teaching them that their unions are doing some horrible things, and they don't have to pay them anymore. Most teachers don't know they don't have to pay them anymore. We sued the unions, a bunch of teachers and myself, and eventually freed all teachers and government employees from being forced to fund unions. So you can click on this button to learn how to adopt teachers. You can click on this button, union exit, for them to learn. We answer all their questions because they're terrified and they've been lied to, and we help them get out of the unions. They can save about $1,200 a year. They don't have to pay these unions to destroy their profession and the kids they love and they want to serve. And we have all these other buttons you can look at too, but the one I want to take you to today is this one that says toolkits. So if you click on toolkits, you'll come to, right now we just have 4, we're working on some more, but the toolkit that is important to you in your battle at the school board meetings is this Parent Advocate Toolkit. So I'm going to click on that for you. And all it is, it's just a PDF of pages that, and we're having a long download time here, so let's try again. Here we go. It's just a very simple toolkit. And what I mean by a toolkit is just a few pages of information. It's not a box. You don't have to buy it. It's just pages. You just print it out or read it directly from our website. And we answer these 13 top frequently asked questions that we've received from parents who are fighting at the school board. We hired a gal to write this who is an expert on speaking at school boards. She's been doing it for years and years. When nobody else wanted to go speak at the school board, she often spoke all by herself. So she helped us develop this. So we have the 13 questions, then we answer each question all in order. So if you only need answer to question number 5, you only have to read the answer to question number 5. It's very simple. There's a few links on there for you, and this will empower you. Spend 20 minutes reading this toolkit and empowering yourself, and you will be able to go to those school board meetings. You will be ready to speak with authority. And after you read our Parent Advocate Toolkit, we recommend that you also just peruse our website for other information, because anything you can learn, like the Critical Race Theory Toolkit, your district might be lying to you and saying, we don't have critical race theory, because they're using some other name for critical race theory. Oh, they probably have it. So this toolkit, written by a woman who survived Mao's Cultural Revolution in China and understands critical race theory when she sees it, or critical theory, gives you all the alternative terms that they could use and many other things to help you understand. So our website is meant to help you to be educated on what's really going on in America's public schools and to empower you to fight back. And my biggest ask for you is, would you please stand with teachers? Most teachers are good people. Most teachers went into teaching for all the right reasons, and they're terrified. Some of them have PTSD. Many of them have been chased out of the schools early because of the corruption. They can't take it anymore, and they don't have any place to go. Well, they come to us, but they're too afraid to go out to the public because they're so severely bullied. So would you please adopt a teacher? And then those teachers can help you and empower you when you're going to go speak to that school board. So thanks so much for listening today. It's been an honor to be your guest presenter. Again, I'm Rebecca Friedrichs. We're at forkidsandcountry.org, and thank you all for being in this fight.
That was perfect. Thank you.
Great.